Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another live iThemes training event. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host here at iThemes Training, and I'm joined by Timothy Jacobs, the lead developer for iThemes Security. Welcome, Timothy. How's things going in your world?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing pretty well. We've got a good week started off here. It's gotten pretty cold down here in the South. Probably been cold for a while up where you are.
A little bit, but yeah, this is my weather. You know, the 50s and the 60s. That's what I'm all for. If it could be that year round, it's a reprieve when the asphalt is no longer shining back thousands of degrees at you in New York City, and the trash on the streets isn't constantly invading your nasal cavities. It's an improvement.
Oh, that sounds delightful. That just sounds absolutely delightful.
Give me the fall weather, the pumpkin spice lattes. I'm all here for it.
Paul Taubman loves, awesome Paul there in the chat, loves pumpkin spice. We can get into that later, though. Give us a little overview of what we're going to be covering today.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about biometric logins and passkeys in iThemes security. So if you missed it, I don't know how you did. We've spoken quite a bit about it. But we launched passkeys in iThemes security just after WordCamp US in September. And we did a preview webinar about this back in August. And now that the feature is live and official and you can use it right now, we wanted to give it another show off, answer your questions, if you've tried it, what problems you ran into. So yeah, we're going to be taking another dive into passkeys.
Excellent. So this is a fantastic feature. It's live now in iThemes security. It really will make logging in simple and easy and secure for you and your clients. So let me do a couple of housekeeping notes and we'll turn it over to Timothy to get started. First of all, I'm going to drop once again into the chat a couple of links. First is for today's slides. If you'd like to download those and follow along, you may. There's also going to be plenty of live demo today. Also, the replay link is there where you can rewatch this video about an hour after we wrap up today. It'll have the transcript, it'll have the chat, and all those things, as well as the replay video, which you can rewatch or share with others that might be interested. As always, if you'd like to ask questions, please pop open the Q&A window down at the bottom of the Zoom share. You put your mouse on top of the Zoom window, the menu will pop up, and you can click the Q&A button. That will open up that Q&A window. I would encourage you just to leave that open the whole time because you'll see the questions as asked by others. And if you also have that question, click the thumbs up button and that will upvote that question. And we'll take our questions in order at the end of the number of votes. So with that, I'm going to disappear and turn it over to Timothy. Let's get started.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's start talking about passkeys. So before I wanted to dive into passkeys, I wanted to give y'all a little bit of a state of account security in WordPress. The big main question is, what do we do about passwords? We kind of already have this problem with users using weak passwords. I don't know if you've gotten some credentials from your clients and you look at those passwords like, oh dear, oh boy, that's not the greatest. And trying to get your clients to use stronger passwords can be difficult. It can be an uphill battle. How do I remember this? They ask things like that. We also then kind of get into this era of users reusing passwords. So they might find a kind of super, maybe at first glance is a complex password that they've generated, but they use that same password on every single site out there, or they have slight variations. And reusing passwords is extremely dangerous. You might be familiar, we have a Have I Been Pwned integration in iThemes security. And a big problem that we run into that you might see is that there are tons of website breaches that leak passwords. And if you or your clients are using the same password on multiple sites, when an attacker sees this breach of email addresses and passwords, they're going to try all of those stolen passwords on every single site that they can think of with your email address or with your client's email addresses. So reusing a password, even if it's a strong one, is extremely dangerous. These passwords can also be phished out of users. If you're in a big corporation or even small corporations, you might have gone through your fair share of phishing training, where we go to users and we say, here, you just won $500, click this link to find it. That's the, you really shouldn't be falling for those attacks, but you might have the more advanced phishing attacks. They're like, hey, I just published this draft post on our website. Can you go take a look at it and review it for me? And you might click on that link. thinking that you're going into your actual WordPress website, but you might not be. You might be going into a phishing website that is targeted, trying to take over your site or your organization. And so the kind of big holy grail for preventing against these password-based attacks has been two-factor. Two-factor is really the strongest protection that we've had available up until now. And it lets you enter in both something you have or something you know, which is your password, and something that you have, which is your two-factor device. The problem is that the user experience for it can be a little bit confusing. It's difficult to teach clients how to use it. Saying that, hey, you need this app here called Authy or Google Authenticator, and you need to open it up and scroll and find your app. Go find it, it's a code. It comes in every 30 seconds. Let's get it in there. And then the setup process is unfortunately not the easiest either. We try and make it as easy as possible to use in iThemes security, but there's still definitely a way to go. We have email-based two-factor authentication solutions, and some that will let you just click a button in your email so that you get logged in automatically. But it's still, unfortunately, a little bit difficult for users. And while we have like some phishing prevention, there are phishing techniques that can even bypass two-factor these days. I'm going to show you a quick demo of one of those video in a second. So let's take a look at deeper dive into phishing attacks. So this is where users can get tricked into giving up their passwords. The really common one of this is pop-ups. This is a kind of clever technique where you see the sign in with Microsoft button. You might see this a lot on the web, sign in with your Google account, sign in with Microsoft, sign in with Facebook, all these different types of services. And this is a pretty clever pop-up technique where you click the sign in with button, you think a pop-up window is opening, but it isn't. That's actually all part of the website. And it can make for a pretty convincing phishing attack. But that's something that most users, if you play around with it, you can kind of see, oh no, this isn't right. But an even more advanced technique that we can see some days is website clones. So this is a video overview of a tool called Evil Nginx. And this is a site that looks identical to Microsoft.com because it really is Microsoft.com. This is a user who is logging into this site with their real Microsoft account, with their real username and password, and they're going through the exact flow. You can see this is even showing kind of like customized login flow where they know, hey, your user account is this. So you might see these things where they present you a picture, like with certain banking websites. Here's a logo. And now this user is entering their actual two-factor authentication code into what appears to be Microsoft.com. And the only way that you really be able to tell that something is wrong is by carefully taking a look at the URL address bar and saying like, oh, this isn't the site that I think I'm logging into. But everything other than that, it looks identical. And so you can see here that this is at cyberfish.xyz, which is a little bit of a giveaway. But attackers can be very creative with the URLs that make them look like, uh-oh, there's no red flag here. It looks almost exactly like Microsoft.com, just this 0 is a no or something like that. And even more clever forms of attacks than that. So what we've kind of been advocating for a long time in iThemes security, I can't remember now when we launched this feature, but it's been a couple of years, is passwordless login. And so this is this technique that was kind of, I think one of the early big players, this was Slack's magic links, if you're a Slack user. And the way this works is it lets you completely skip entering in your password. So sending a strong password to your account isn't as inconvenient anymore because you don't need to type it in every time. As long as you have a strong password set, your account is more protected. It can also let you skip two-factor authentication. After all, you've just clicked a link in your email. So if you're using email-based two-factor authentication, we don't need to ask you for it again. So that can kind of make the login flow a little bit easier. And I think it's a pretty decent user experience. You just get one button that you need to click on and you log in. You can use it through your phone. You can use it through your desktop app, different email applications. They all kind of work and let you get logged into the place that you're looking to go for. And they are pretty phishing resistant. If you activate the trusted devices feature in iThemes security, we'll even show you a graphic showing where the login is coming from. So if it says we're logging into Russia, we don't click confirm login. That's something else, something fishy is going on there. But unfortunately, email is pretty slow, and it can be slow, particularly on WordPress sites if you don't have something set up like Postmark or one of these email providers to give you instant email. It can be a frustrating login experience where if you want to log in, you just want to click one button. You don't want to have to wait for a couple of minutes for an email to arrive to get out of your inbox. It's not the most friction-free experience, especially if you want to get in there right now to your site. So our solution to this is something called Passkeys. This is a quick little demo of it. So this is me logging into my website using a passkey. I click on the Use Your Passkey button. I click Continue, and I'm logged into my site. That's all that I needed to do. It was a kind of one-click experience. My computer knows who I am, and it talks to my WordPress site and says, this is who they say they are, and I'm logged in instantly. I don't have any need for remembering and entering in a long password. I don't have any need for a two-factor device. I can just get into my site using one click. So Passkeys means no passwords. You don't have to use the two-factor authentication methods. And you kind of get a one-click login. You can see here, we earlier saw on my desktop, but this it is in a phone environment. You can see it's prompting me for Face ID and it's logging me in right away. And this is a pretty big claim, but it's the claim that Apple and others make about Passkeys, is that it's phishing proof. It's not actually possible for you to be tricked into giving up your credentials, to be tricked by an attacker into logging into a malicious site, because your actual device won't even let you in. You might be kind of familiar with apps like LastPass or 1Password, password manager apps that let you take a password and get logged in. And you might have the experience that 90% of the time I can just, click the little button that says log me in with 1Password, log me in with LastPass, and I'm right in. But sometimes it doesn't always work. Supposedly this is protection that will say like, okay, if LastPass doesn't pop up, I know something's wrong. I'm not logging into the real chase.com. I'm logging into evil attacker chase.com. But because these features aren't, 100% reliable, it's difficult to say that, okay, and break the habit of, well, I guess I need to go manually copy my password and enter it in this time, and actually get us to say, oh, maybe that means something's going wrong here. But with Passkeys, they truly are phishing proof. There's no way for you to get lazy and say, oh, I'm sure this is fine, and just copy and paste in your passkey. You just can't do it. You won't get into the site. Passkeys are based off of the WebAuthn standard. This was born out of the FIDO Alliance over a multi-year process. It's been in development for over 6 years, really. If you look at some of the earliest forms of this, it goes back even further. And it's backed by Apple, Google, Microsoft. Pretty much all of the big tech giants are on board with Passkeys and trying to promote them as the future of logging in on the web and in mobile apps, actually. And they're at this point supported by all major browsers. Support is improving rapidly. And we'll kind of touch on this a little bit to the end of our slides. But you can use Passkeys now with every browser. The support for different features varies, but it is available broadly. So you can see here, this is an example with Google Chrome. And here's another example actually on a Windows device using Windows Hello. And so I wanted to give a little 1,000-foot overview of what actually happens when you log into a site using Passkeys. And so this is the registration process. We're the cute little blue device over here on the right, and the WordPress site is the little cute green browser window on the left. And so what happens is when your device, and you click on the button that says register, your device talks to your WordPress site and says, hey, I want to create a new account. And what your phone then, or your Mac or your laptop does is it generates what's called a public-private key pair. And this is a really well-known form of cryptography that's existed for a very long time. And it lets us say, okay, here is this public key. Anyone can look at this public key, and anyone can verify that it's me who signed it. And they do that using the private key side of it. So when you log in, you talk to the WordPress site and say, hey, I want to log in. And the WordPress says, how about you sign this piece of data for me? Almost like you'd be signing your signature. And your phone uses the private key part of the public-private key pair to generate a signature based on this data. Your private key, your private information never leaves your site. The only thing, or excuse me, never leaves your device. The only thing that's sent to your site is just a signature. And us, the WordPress website, can take a look at that signature and say, does this match up to what we expected it to be? And if it does, then we can sign you in. And so at no point here did you need to enter in a password, send a password from your device to WordPress, send a copy of your Touch ID, your fingerprint, your face. None of that information ever has to leave your device. There's no secrets that are actually exchanged. It's just a really solid cryptography method called public-private key pairs. And so the big thing that we want to hammer in with some of the improvements that Passkeys make is to account takeovers and phishing-based attacks. And so again, no personal information is going to leave your device. So this means that there's nothing for an attacker to steal. We see all the stories, right, of websites getting hacked and they get access to your passwords, which is a problem, but they might also get access to other information like your address and things like that. But with Passkeys, you might be saying, well, does that mean that a website has a copy of my face now? And no, they don't. So there's nothing for an attacker to get. So if they do steal the database, the site gets compromised, you're not under threat. There wasn't any data of yours that was stolen from your authentication method. So it means that that can't progress to being attacked on other sites. If your account on one WordPress site gets hacked, it can't be used to take over a site on another WordPress site, even if you, because you can't even use the same password. It's just not possible. You can't really be tricked into giving up your password at all. You can see over here on the right, it says, do you want to sign into security.test? That's my domain name for my testing site as admin. And you can see on Google Chrome, it's a similar thing. It says it's trying to log in and verify your identity for security.test. It's presenting you the domain name that you're logging into. But even if you blew past all of these warnings and didn't pay attention to the domain name that it was saying, you still couldn't make a mistake. It's kind of preventing you from accidentally giving up your passwords to a motivated attacker. There's just no way for you to make a mistake there. And here's another example on Windows security. Now, there are two forms of authenticators with what's called WebAuthn. We have platform authenticators, and these are the really great ones that we think most people are going to be using. These are things that are built into your computer, your smartphone, your browser. And they often use biometrics like Touch ID or Windows Hello, Face ID on other platforms to authenticate you and to know that, hey, you're actually using this device the same way that if you just have your phone, you can't access anything until you swipe in and unlock your phone. It's a similar mechanism where your device isn't going to share your authentication methods until you authenticate with your device again by using Touch ID, Face ID, Windows Hello, etc. The other side of this are roaming authenticators, and this is something that's supported, but these are separate hardware devices that you often connect with Bluetooth, USB keys, NFC. These are things like YubiKeys or Titan keys. So the geeky ones of us might have things like this. This is my YubiKey that I've used for a while that I really love. And you can use that if you want to with iThemes security passkeys, but it is not what we're expecting users to be able to need to purchase and learn how to use. For the most part, users will use platform authenticators that are just built into their devices. And so both of these options have slightly different capabilities in terms of browser support right now. These are platform authenticators, which have a little bit less browser support, but at this point, and I'm going to be covering this in a second, are pretty much all here for the major platforms. Roaming authenticators, on the other hand, are supported everywhere. Pretty much. So if you do have a USB key, like a YubiKey or Titan key, you can use that with anything. If you're wanting to use the authentication methods that are built into your device, it varies a little bit more based on what your device supports and the versions of the operating system that you're on, browsers, and so on and so forth. I wanted to cover two different platforms at a high level. If you remember my talk from back in August, I talked a little bit about single device authentication. This is where if your laptop, for instance, has a Touch ID sensor, for a couple of years now, you've been able to log in using just that laptop, pressing your Touch ID sensor. And this was kind of single device authentication. That meant that your actual MacBook laptop is the thing that's been authenticated. But what we have now is iCloud synced passkeys. And this solves the major challenge that we've had with adopting passkeys and WebAuthn up until now, is that passkeys were just on the individual device that you registered them. But with iOS 16 and macOS Ventura, which is actually launching next week, iOS syncs all the passkeys for you. So they'll sync your passkeys across all different devices, and you'll be able to log into your WordPress site using the same passkey from any of your devices without needing to go through a separate registration step for your phone and your desktop and your laptop and your iPad and so on and so forth. Android just recently published a blog post detailing their plans as well. They are syncing passkeys using Google Password Manager, so that's kind of built into Chrome and your Android devices. So you can use Google Password Manager and have the same experience. And this is going to be releasing in the fall later this year, or I guess maybe winter. We'll see, December 21st, something like that. But Google has announced their intentions to launch it later this year. But we'll get into a demo showing off an early version of that using Chrome. I wanted to cover server requirements, and then we're going to hop into demoing this and see it in action. If you didn't see the news, iThemes Security's latest release, 7.2, requires PHP 7.3 or later. From what you can tell, most of y'all are on a PHP version that is compatible with this. But if you're not, make sure to update to PHP 7.3 or all the way up to 8.1 if you're adventurous to be able to use passkeys in the latest versions of iThemes Security. You do need OpenSSL on your site. This is something that pretty much everyone has, but if you see an error about it, you can ask your hosting provider and they can get it set up for you. And lastly, this entire feature doesn't work if your site doesn't have HTTPS. We've talked for years about the need for you to have SSL on your site, even if your site is just a blog. And this is one of those features that just isn't available unless your site is using HTTPS. If you haven't adapted HTTPS, a little bit of a mouthful, you should be doing that yesterday, but now is better than never doing it. So you should really get on the HTTPS game. But yeah, you can try this now in iThemes Security Pro 7.2. It's available in the member panel. You should see an auto update for you if you're available. I'm going to take a break to drink a little bit of water, and then we're going to hop into a demo and then tackle all y'all's questions. Okie dokie. So let's get into this. Let's see. So I need to stop this share, go over here. And we're going to share a screen again. Okay, so hopefully y'all are able to see this. If you could confirm for me, that'd be awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to start for a second on Safari to show you something that you might run into. I'm going to add a new passkey to my device here. I'm in my user profile. You can get to it obviously from user's profile or from up here and editing your profile. And what you might see is if you go into manage passkeys and add a passkey, you might see this message: your device doesn't support passkeys. So on this computer, I'm not running the latest macOS beta. So its passkeys aren't officially supported on this device yet. So you'll see a message like this. If you want to, you can still set up a USB security key, but the flow is a lot more complex. It's more for advanced users, so you might run into that. But I'm going to go proceeding with this demo in Google Chrome, which does have passkey support right now. I'm using Chrome Canary. So hopefully everything's going to be stable here, but live demo, always got to cross your fingers and see what goes on. So I'm over here on my WordPress site. I'm going to start by showing you logging with passkeys, and then we'll go through the setup process. So I'm going to enter in my username here. And so I have a USB security key plugged in. Let's actually unplug that so we can see a better flow. But we're going to try again, and we're going to use this device. And so you can see that Google Chrome is trying to verify my identity on timothy.ithemes.dev. And I can actually approve this login request just using my Apple Watch. So I'm going to double click. And I've been logged into my WordPress website. And so it's just that easy of a setup process for actually logging in. But now let's dive into what it would look like for setting this up for a new user. So I have the subscriber account. I'm going to pause my screen share for a second. And I'm just generating myself a password. Okay. So we're going to go into iThemes security settings. You're going to see in the settings page a new feature called Passkeys. You're going to want to start by making sure that this is enabled. Then you can head on over into passwordless login. And once you enable Passkeys, you'll see that we have a couple of different authentication methods for passwordless login now. We have magic links, which is the email-based authentication that you are used to. But we also have Passkeys now. And so this should be turned on for you by default, but you can turn it on here if you like. You also have an option to choose who you want this to be enabled for. So you can let this be enabled by default, or you can disable it for all users by default. We prefer to recommend it and have it set to enabled by default, but you can change that if you'd like. We also have two different login flows. I really love the username first method, and I'm going to be showing that off for the rest of the demo. But there's essentially a difference between asking the user who they are first or asking the user how they want to log in first. But we're going to start with username first. So we've got that saved. I'm now going to, let's take a look at that user. Okay, hold on one more second, y'all. I'm going to create ourselves a new test user. And I'm going to pause the screen share for one more second. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and log in as this demo user. So I'm going to log in with my password. We're going to skip setting up two-factor for this user right now. And we're prompted to set up passkeys. So we've already logged in, but WordPress is telling us that passkeys are available to us and that we can set them up if we'd like to. So you can skip this setup if you don't want to, but you can read a little bit about how passkeys work. And the first step is to click Add Passkey. So we're going to press Add Passkey to register our device. So by default, this passkey is going to be saved to my actual Google Chrome account for this device. And we're going to go ahead and continue with that, but we can also register it to a phone or different devices like that. But we're going to stick with this for now. So I want to now authenticate with Google Chrome, and I could type in my computer's password here, or since I have an Apple Watch, I can just double click to improve. And now I've created my passkey. So I'm going to call this Chrome Canary, so I can remember this passkey later. And it's going to tell me the next time I log in, I can look for the use your passkey button to log in with one click. And we've got a handy link over to documentation for different browsers if you want to learn more about it. We can hit complete registration. And we have passkeys completely set up for this user. So if we scroll down into our passkeys section, we can see we have Chrome Canary. And it was added today, but it hasn't been used yet. So now the next time I want to log in as this user, I can go ahead and type in my username again. And I'll see a new option that says user passkey. And so once I click this button, I get the pop-up. And I'm logged into my site. So really one click, pretty easy to set up, especially once you've set it up for the first time on a device or a service. I think setting it up the next time will get a little bit easier. I'm also going to add another passkey. So I'm going to add a passkey, not saving to this device, but I'm going to save it to a different device. So this is an option. If you remember from our talk back in August, this said an Android device. It's saying Chrome has said that they're going to update this to mention that you can use it on Androids, iPhones, anything. And they've done this in this Canary release. This will be live later this year. But I'm going to go ahead and say I want to create a passkey for a different device. And so this gives me a QR code that I can scan. So I'm going to scan this with my iPhone using the camera app. And I get a little pop-up that says save a passkey. This is a little bit hard to kind of demo. There's a lot of moving parts here, but if you go to iThemes.com, you can see kind of some screen recordings that show this. But y'all should see that hopefully my iOS device is now prompting me if I want to create a new passkey. So I'm going to say yes. And it's doing a little bit of Face ID authentication. And you can see that my Google Chrome instance is automatically updated. And I'm going to say that I've saved this to iCloud and hit done. And so now you can see I have 2 passkeys for my account. This Google Chrome Canary, which is just for this computer, but I've used my phone to use iCloud. And so that means that I can use iCloud across any of my devices to log into my website now. So I'm going to show an example of how that works through Google Chrome. So again, I'm going to say, let's use demo, use my passkey. And instead of using my password, I'm going to try again using a different device. And so now I can point my device here, hit sign in with a passkey, and I get a little sign in screen that looks like this. It's connecting, connecting, connecting. Yeah, so the way this works is that the 2 devices are actually talking to each other. My phone is talking to my computer over Bluetooth, and then they're setting up a connection to each other over the web. So they kind of have to be next to each other. But I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. So yeah, I've been prompted up for here. Go into Face ID. And I've been logged in. So this is really handy. When I am just using my own computer, I can log in just using the passkey that's saved into my device. But if I'm on the road, if I'm using someone else's computer, I can always use the option that says, hey, let me use a different device for this, and you'll be able to log in using that device wherever you are. If I wanted to now, and let me see if I can actually figure out a way. I think I can demonstrate this. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab this guy. And I'm going to see if I can show you all what's going to happen on my phone as well. Okay, so let me go into Zoom. Ooh, are you all seeing this? Maybe not. I don't think that's going through. Okay, hopefully y'all can see this now.
Yep, that looks good.
Awesome. So I'm going to type in my username here. This is on that same test site. I'm going to hit continue. I'm going to use my passkey. And now you can see the prompt that I'm getting on my device and hit continue. And I'm logged in and can manage my passkeys here. So you can see on this device here, I set up this passkey with Google Chrome that you saw me do, but I saved it to my iPhone. And so my iPhone via iCloud has this synced across all my devices. And I was able to just log in using that same device without needing to set up passkeys another time. So for most users, you only need to set up passkeys once, probably. If you're in the Google Chrome and Android universe, you'll set it up to your Google Chrome account. If you're in the iPhone universe with iOS, you'll save it to your iCloud account. And then across all of your devices, you'll just be able to use it using that one-click option that I just showed you. But if you're using another device, you can still do that by scanning the QR code and following the prompts that happen on screen. And maybe I could show that. Let us see. I'm going to go and log out in Google Chrome. let's actually log out of our demo device here. And we're going to say use your passkey. But we're not going to do that. We're going to use a different device. And then if we open up the camera, you can see that nice, pretty little flow there. And I'm getting prompted to sign in, which y'all should see this side of it. But I know you can't see the Google Chrome side of it. Unfortunately, I can't really share all the devices at once. But hopefully this kind of illustrates what's going on here. And so I'm getting prompted if I want to sign in. And I do. And I'm logged in. I'm going to go back to our Google Chrome sharing. There we go. So those are the kind of major flows that are available with Passkeys. You can see I've set it up on one device. I've synced it across multiple different devices. I can log in with multiple different devices and get logged in really securely. Don't have to use two-factor authentication, but it's really just as secure as two-factor, if in fact it's actually more strong than using two-factor and a strong password. So with that, we're going to open it up to, I see a lot of y'all have had questions over in the Q&A, and we can start tackling some of those.
Very good. So I know some of you asked questions in the chat. Please pop up in the Q&A window, which you can see by mousing over the shared Zoom screen. Click the Q&A icon, and please ask your question there. That way it gets put in the list that we'll start to give Timothy right now. Before we do that, I'm going to quickly drop in the two links, one for today's slides and then one for the replay. I know some of you mentioned in the chat, rewatching this will be pretty helpful, and you can slow that down and walk through that at your own speed after we wrap up today. Okay, also in the Q&A window, please press the thumbs up button by any questions that you would like to also hear the answer for. That'll upvote those questions and give them priority in the list. Okay, first question from Sue. Timothy, do you think that this is a solution for non-technical clients? Have you ever taught anyone how to use it? As that is, that is not a technical person. What's your advice in that situation?
So I don't have clients this much these days. Nathan's probably the best person to ask for this, as I know you started to think about doing the rollout for Passkeys. We did do a bunch of user testing with users of various technical backgrounds, and we found that they were able to successfully complete the registration flow and the login flow. The truth of the matter is that it has to be. I think the state of security that we're in with passwords, frankly, just isn't sustainable. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I think Facebook said they prevent millions, if not more, attacks every day from attackers that have a user's real username and real password. And the only reason that Facebook blocks those attacks is because of some of the more advanced monitoring that they're able to have in place. But these are users that have their password compromised. And the state of users needing to remember really complex passwords, we've proven it's just not possible. Humans can't remember 24-digit random codes. It's just not a thing that's possible. And needing to teach users that, hey, you need to use this whole other password management app. Unfortunately, they don't work all the time. And so Passkeys is something that's radically new. We've had Passkeys for our passwords for like 50 years. There's a lot of inertia there that we're going to have to get over. Teaching people how to use this new thing is definitely going to take some time. But I think unlike two-factor with mobile apps and unlike password managers, once you have this set up, you actually have a much quicker and much faster flow. And the setup process, while different than what you usually do, for most users will just be, hey, I use my Google Chrome every day and I get to log in with one click. Or, hey, I use my iOS devices every day or my macOS devices. I'm in that ecosystem and I get to log in every day with just one click. So I think that's where we need to get to as an industry, just because all these accounts that are getting compromised, It's just not a sustainable path forward if we don't. And I do think that it is a solution that can be taught to non-technical users. I mean, us, the techie geeks, we've already had and been comfortable with using two-factor codes and different apps and all this stuff, and we've been protected. But this really is about protecting the broader base of users.
Yeah.
And the big thing to remember is if your clients are using an administrator account on their website, it's just as important for their account to be protected as it is for yours, the developer or the site builder.
Yeah, and once the passkey is set up and your browser is linked, as it were, to the website, it's as simple as clicking the button once and you're logged in, right?
Right, exactly. You don't need to be juggling different things. You don't need to be going back to email. And the setup process, this is also a thing I've been showing this off in the web, but passkeys are also coming to Android and iOS and already there for iOS in actual mobile apps. So if you log into different applications, you'll be able to log in and register an account using passkeys. So it's not just going to be something that is stuck only in the web. It's something that is being pushed across the web, desktop applications, mobile applications, everywhere. So it should be something that users become more and more familiar with. And that's going to take education, both from us as people that have clients and can teach about it, but also from device manufacturers like Apple and Google, and pushing out user education on their end as well. But I do think it is something that can be taught, and unlike two-factor and password apps, is actually a more convenient solution than even needing to type in a 15-character password that's the same on every site.
Yeah. Okay, good question from Sue here. Sue says, our clients get new phones and don't think to back up their 2FA. Is there a backup for passkeys? Can they be backed up? What happens if, does, for example, clearing my, browser data, flushing cookies or whatever, does that clear the passkey?
Nope.
But if you get a new computer, a new phone, how does that all work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this was the major kind of last bit of the UX that needed to be solved for passkeys, is that passkeys kind of have existed on devices for the past couple of years where it was just saved to that device. And you could set up a passkey for your laptop with Touch ID and your desktop with Touch ID, and those would be two different passkeys, and they'd be disconnected from each other. But iCloud and Google both have syncing mechanisms. So when I create a passkey and save it to iCloud, like I did with my iPhone, that passkey is saved into my iCloud account. So if I get a new iPhone, when I set up my new iPhone and log into iCloud, I got that passkey automatically. I didn't have to do anything. If I get a new computer, I can do that. And let's say you lose everything whatsoever, you're following the same kind of account recovery procedures that Apple has had for a long time. So there is a multi-step process where they have to make sure it's really you. You don't just want anyone to be able to go to Apple and say, hey, I lost this account. There's a whole multi-step process that they go through to make sure that this really is you. But you can recover even if you lose everything. And it's similar for Google's password syncing as well. When you set it up on your Android device, it gets synced into your Google Password Manager store, and it syncs it everywhere. So when you set up a new device or lose your device, you're still set. On the WordPress side of things, passkeys aren't like a thing that you would back up. You still have password-based authentication available. So you can go through the password reset flow and create a new passkey if you wanted to. But you don't need to back up anything in the WordPress side of things. It's all about your device, and all the device manufacturers back this up and sync it everywhere.
Yeah. And that's actually interesting because we've had situations with clients that do use 2FA where somebody got a new phone, and now it's like what it reminded me of, to be honest, is 15 years ago, every time somebody would get a new phone, back when I was supporting email for my clients, now they help me put my email on my phone, which, God, I never want to go back there again, right? So the 2FA, like if you get a new device, you've got to set it up, and people don't know how to do that. But this is actually going to solve that problem, right?
Exactly. This sticks with you. So when you log in with your Google account, when you set up your new phone, it's already there. And there's even like options that will automatically migrate it for you at later points in the setup process if you choose not to initially. They've really thought through that kind of procedure, because this is a big one.
And it's important to note that passkeys are not something that we came up with here at iThemes. It's not just iThemes security. This is an industry standard that we're really on the cutting edge of, and it's going to be more broadly adopted. It's a big deal in this new Mac OS version that's going to drop one of these days soon.
Next week, next Tuesday,
week,
I think.
Yeah, so it's rolling out across the board, and it's something that's, you know, it's new to folks now, but it certainly won't be. It's going to be the new thing that is coming.
Yeah.
Stacy would like to know, are passkeys more secure in your opinion than two-factor authentication?
Yes, definitively. And there are a few absolutes in security, but I would say yes, definitively more secure. If you remember from that demo video that I showed with that Evil Nginx setup, this is a tool that a security researcher built that does this all for you. You didn't have to manually copy. Like, you'd see these old phishing websites of old where, you know, they tried their best to make it look like Google. This is actually Google's source code of their website being delivered to you. It's identical pixel for pixel. It will take your two-factor code, and if you give it a bad one, it won't let you through. The ability to create hyper-realistic phishing websites is better than it's ever been. And the tools for it are easy to set up. And traditional two-factor is susceptible to phishing. If you're entering in that 6-digit code and you're not 100% sure that you're entering it into the right website, your 6-digit code is gone. But passkeys really are much more secure. And we think we give you the option on iThemes security to say if you still want to use two-factor with passkeys. So if you are in a field where security is really, 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 really important, like really important, you can use two-factor with passkeys. But we believe that, and Apple and the other big players believe that it is totally fine to use passkeys as a replacement for passwords plus two-factor, and it is more secure.
Yeah. Let's see. Paul would like to know, would we give, what do you think? Should we give our users all the options for their login? Like, would you give, just username and password, or everything? Like username, magic login, two-factor, passwordless. What do you think about that?
Great question. So the dream scenario that we want to get to is you just use passkeys, but we're not there yet. We don't have an option in iThemes security yet, though it is on our roadmap for letting you disable password-based authentication. So when you set up your WordPress account, it's still important that you set up using the randomly generated password that WordPress gave you. And ideally, you would write that down somewhere or save it to your password manager. But you'll never have to see that again and never have to use it again. And what we're going to want to do in iThemes security in a future release is give you administrators the option to let users say, turn off password-based authentication entirely. I don't want to ever use a password. Don't let me use a password. If someone's trying to use a password, it's an attacker. It's not me. But we're not there yet. In terms of passwordless login, really, we want to be pushing users to using passkeys. And the most secure method would be to disable the magic link, the email-based method for passwordless login. But I don't think you need to do it yet. But that is the ideal point, is that you'll just say, use your passkey, and you get to use your passkey. And that's also, this is what's very cool about the username first flow. So if you've looked, what I see when I want to log in is I just say, enter in my username or email address. And I'm entering in demo. And when I enter in demo, iThemes security knows that I have passkeys set up for my account. So it's presenting this to me. But if I didn't have passkeys set up, it wouldn't present this to me. So users not going to click this thinking, hey, what are passkeys? Do I have that or not? And try and do it before they set it up. So I really like the username first flow that kind of gives you those progressive options. And so in the future, you might not see this login with your password button if you've disabled that for your user account, for instance. But that's not where we are today.
Yeah, interesting. And the email magic link is there because that's toggled on inside the iThemes security settings.
Exactly.
Right?
You can toggle it off if you want to, but it is still enabled. And the email magic link, I think, still does have a little bit of a place. It makes for a really nice setup flow. I wonder if this is, do I want to do another 2-minute demo for a second, maybe?
Absolutely.
Let me see if I can set this up. Okay. So I'm going to go over to this site here. And I'm going to log in into the administrator user, actually. And I'm gonna use my passkey. I think that's cool. I just clicked on my watch and I'm in my WordPress website. But I'm going to create a new demo user. We'll say this passkey and we'll say Timothy. What email should I use? I'll use this. And I'm going to hide this. None of y'all copy and paste this. Uh-oh. Okay. I need to pause this screen share. I'm going to generate a new password here. Okay. So we're going to go to our phone again. Okay. Now I'm going to try and log in as that user. So Timothy, or what do they call this? Passkey? Yeah, I call it passkey. And we're going to log in. And so this is the first time that I'm logging into this website. I don't know, let's say, what the password was that was created for this account. And what I can do is I can use magic links to get in for the first time, which makes for a really kind of convenient flow of getting into a website without needing to know or even set up my password. I just have the random password that's generated for me by WordPress. Can you also see this? It says my screen share is paused.
Yeah, that's someone, Sue just noted that we were not able to see what you just did.
Okay. I'm going to do that again. Sorry about that, y'all. So I'm going to log in as that user.
Again, this is because it's set up as username first. So you're logging in as that user, and then based on whether or not that user has passkeys set up or not, it's going to present them with the various login options. Like in this case, magic links are toggled on, and you have the option to log in with a password.
Right. I haven't set up passkeys for this account yet. So I'm going to use the magic link method because I also don't know the password. It was a random password that's generated for me by WordPress. So I'm going to email that magic link. And now I'm going to check my email, and give me a second to pull that up, y'all. So I'm over here in my email, and I have my passwordless login is here. Click here to log in. So I'm going to hit login now. We're going to skip setting up two-factor again. But now we're in the passkey setup process on a new phone.
And just to pause for a second, the reason it presented us with the two-factor screen is because two-factor is also toggled on as a login option. If that was not toggled on in the iThemes security settings, that wouldn't have been presented.
Exactly. And if it was, you can also disable the two-factor prompt depending on what users you want it for. We'd like to have it there because we want to tell users about all the security methods they have to protect themselves. So I'm going to add my passkey. Do I want to save a passkey for passkey? Maybe it wasn't the perfect choice of username. It's a little bit redundant, but it's telling me that passkeys are saved in my iCloud keychain. I'm going to say, yes, I do. And we'll call this iCloud. And again, it's telling me about using passkeys. And this part only gets shown once. So I'm now logged into my website. I still don't know the password for this user account. I'm going to log out. Log in as passkey again. And this time I have the magic link option from before, but I also have the use your passkey option. So I'm going to hit use your passkey. I'm getting prompted. And I'm signed in. So at no point did I need to scan anything, go into different apps. I still don't know what on earth the password is for this user account. If I needed to get it, I could do a password reset flow if I wanted to. But I was able to log in as a new user that was created for me, use magic links, which is where I still think there's a little bit of a nicety of having magic links here, to gain access to my account for the first time. And then I was able to set up a passkey. So the next time that I want to log in, I just use passkey login and I just get in with one click. So I kind of wanted to show an overview of what that full kind of flow looks like in an ecosystem where passkeys are completely available to you, and you have no need to open up a password manager and manage any of that stuff.
A good question just popped in from Daniel in the chat, and we still have 14 questions or 12 questions left in the Q&A.
We're gonna be here a minute. I've got all day, Nathan. So.
Okay, so Daniel would like to know if you have existing users, like we just saw, we set up a new user. If you have an existing user, how do you migrate those folks over to Passkeys?
Great question. So the next time they log in, if we detect that Passkeys are available to them, we'll show them the option if Passkeys are enabled by default. So if we go back to our setting here, and we're going to hop into passwordless login. If I disabled the availability by default for all users, they wouldn't see that prompt. They would have to go to their profile. But with this enabled, they'll see that prompt to set up passkeys. And so they can have an existing user account. And if we detect the passkeys are available to them, we'll prompt them to set it up, or they can skip. If you disable this, any user can go to their profile, scroll on down to passkeys, and first they'll need to enable this check mark, enable passwordless login. Once they enable that, they'll see this whole passkeys section here, and they can go into manage devices and add in a new passkey. And I have a whole bunch of these here because this is one of my test sites. So most users will probably only have 1 or 2 passkeys, but that's that setup process. And you also have this option here, use 2-factor during passwordless login. So by default, this is on because we don't want to ever remove security that a user has set up without them taking an active step to do that. But we prompt the user that logs in for the first time using passwordless login if they want to continue using 2-factor when they use passwordless login. And we think it's perfectly safe to disable this. For most users, what we call their threat model, what they're concerned about, it's fine to disable that. And it makes the login process really nice.
Very good. All right, let's see here. Next question is from Stacy. Stacy says, I know several people that share their computers with members of their household. How do they prevent other users from getting onto their website?
Awesome question. So this is why I've been prompted. So if I go and log out again, I'm going to log in as my user. Hit continue. And I'm going to say use your passkey. Now, this is why this prompt is critical. It's saying Google Chrome Canary is trying to verify my identity. What I'm doing each time this happens, and you might be able to see that, you can kind of also, y'all remember that you can change how Zoom presents the videos so you can make me and Nathan's faces super big.
Yeah,
but
grab the vertical there. If you mouse over the vertical bar just to the left of the video, you can slide that all the way over.
Maybe now y'all can also read that. I'm doing a little bit. I'm showing off my gymnastic skills.
Yeah, so I was about to say.
But so I need to authenticate with my Mac that I'm still here, that this is still me. If I didn't want to use this, let's say I can use my password, and you can see it actually timed out for me. So I'm actually entering now my computer password. So this is the password that I use to log into my Mac. So when I hit login, I get logged in and it's spinning. So that's the part that still protects you. That's why you always saw those prompts when I was already authenticated with my phone. I was using Safari, but I still got the prompt to scan with Face ID because Apple wants to know that it's actually me who's using this device right now. And it's the same thing on the Mac. We actually want to verify that you are who you say you are. So you get prompted to, if you use a Mac with a Touch ID sensor, like a laptop, you get prompted for that. Otherwise, you get prompted for your computer password.
Yeah, very good. And so it really comes down to the passkeys are associated with a user account on the computer. And Stacy's saying that they still, all the people in the household use the same user account. And at that point, like, I don't know what to do for you.
Yeah, I would not recommend that. Yeah, I guess would be the thing to say. If that is the situation that you're in, save it to your phone. And your passkey is now on your phone. And you'll need your phone to log in as opposed to saving it to this device. But yeah, really, we had a similar question about kind of sharing user accounts in August in the context of WordPress. It's always a security best practice to have people have separate user accounts. You can make sure that everything is secure. If someone loses their password, you only have to have their password updated and not force everyone who's using that account to have that password updated. That's really the best way to go about it.
Got it. Let's see. William would like to know, how can you use and William, I'm going to try, I think I understand your question here. I'm going to do my best. William is wanting to know, how do you use passkeys without needing a 2-factor code, but still requiring a code for password login. Really, Passkeys replaces the need for a password, right?
It does. But so what I think William is asking is, so this user account here, I have two-factor set up. I have it set up using email because that's what I was testing out earlier. But if I also set up Passkeys with mobile apps, because I have this checkbox unchecked, I'm not needing to enter in my two-factor code. If I had this checked,
I see what he's asking now.
Yeah, go ahead and clarify for me.
Yeah, so he's saying if you choose if Passkeys is enabled, but yet you still choose login with the password option, will it then prompt for two-factor if two-factor is enabled?
Yeah, so I'm going to hit continue here, and I'm going to choose to log in with my password. Now, give me a second. I have to open up my password manager. Normally, this would be a bit easier to demo, but because I need to show you all the pop-ups that happen from the browsers, I have to actually share my screen. I can't just share one app. So just give me a second here to pull this up. Okay, I've got my password. So I'm going to enter in my password here, log in. And because that checkbox was checked for my user account, I'm now getting prompted for my two-factor authentication code. So I'm going to go ahead and copy in that code and hit login. And I'm now logged into my site. I had to use two-factor, but oh, I should demonstrate this better. Sorry. So I have used two-factor during passwordless login. If I unchecked that, the same thing would have happened. So I'm going to log into my user account, go into Timothy, say I want to use my password, copy and paste this, and I get asked for a two-factor code because I'm logging in with a password. I'm going to grab my authentication code again. Now, the part where that setting is important is if I have this checked in my profile, use two-factor during passwordless login. Now, if I passwordless login, I'm still going to be prompted for a two-factor code. Whoops. There's too many email addresses going on, Nathan. We got 15 user accounts testing here. So I'm going to hit use my passkey. I'm going to log in with my passkey in my watch. And I'm still getting prompted for two-factor because I have that setting enabled. We don't think you need to have that setting enabled for 99.9% of users. You can say that, okay, I've got two-factor set up, but I'm never going to need to use it because I'm logging in with passwordless login, but it is an option for you. But if you have two-factor set up on your account and an attacker goes in and knows your password, they're going to still have to enter in the two-factor code. So that's why we would still recommend setting up at least email-based two-factor, but you're just never going to have to use it. And this is why it's important in the future to maybe have an option that says, don't let anyone ever log in with a password. No. If someone's trying to log in with a password, it's not me, because then an attacker can't brute force anything. They'd have to brute force your passkey, which is effectively impossible.
Yeah. Okay, we have a bunch of questions here. Can we go rapid fire?
Yeah.
All right. So Stacy wants to know, what about Windows 11 and platform authenticators?
So Windows Hello supports WebAuthn and Passkeys.
Awesome. Paul would like to know, what about users that tested this? Were they able to set up? Oh, Paul. Okay, Paul is asking about instructions for clients. We're gonna work on that, Paul.
Yeah, we have a pretty comprehensive document, but we don't have something that is specific for clients yet. But if you go over to this Learn More About Passkeys article, we have this kind of overview, and then we have different documentation for different devices. So using Passkeys on your Mac, using Passkeys on Windows, using Passkeys on mobile devices, that kind of walks you through the different steps.
Yeah, very good. Timothy, are you at a spot where you could copy and paste that link into the chat?
Yeah.
That would be super helpful. Stacy is saying she's using Windows 11 and isn't sure what Windows Hello is. So it's built into Windows OS. If you just search for it, Stacy, it's there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Stacy would also like to know, okay, how do I just disable passkeys altogether? Is it on by default?
No, it is not on by default yet. It's something that we may turn on by default in the future. But since we just launched it, it isn't. But to disable it, one button.
Very good. All right. I've just dropped, Timothy chatted me the link. I've just chatted it
I'm
to
sorry.
everybody. No problem. That is the Help Center article on Passkeys. If you're watching this on the replay, just open up the chat log or just Google what are Passkeys and look for the iThemes.com listing. Let's see. Manu would like to know, I usually use a Mac desktop and log in with Passkey, and then I have to add my Mac admin login. How secure is that if someone obtains my Mac login and then can log into all the websites?
Yeah, so that's your threat model, is that if someone is able to steal your Mac device and knows your computer password, then they would be able to log in. So if your threat model includes that someone might be able to steal your physical device and be able to gain access to that password, then I would recommend including two-factor still by going into your user profile and enabling that setting. We think for most people, that's not part of their threat model, but if it is, you can definitely do that. But at that point, your two-factor device is probably also on your phone. And once they've stolen your phone and your computer and all that kind of stuff, they kind of go hand in hand. So for most people, the keys to the kingdom become just make sure my computer is protected and make sure I have a good password on my computer.
Yeah. Let's see. Question here from Sue. Sue says, we have medical doctors whose hospitals require their own two-factor tool. Is this going to bypass that tool for them? And Sue, I guess are we talking about logging into the hospital website?
Yeah, I mean, like it'll depend on how people adapt it. But there are also like additional strength verification options that we don't have these settings in iThemes security, but there's passkeys can actually be configured such that they'll only accept passkeys if they are authenticated by biometrics. So there are even higher levels of security that the greater ecosystem can adopt. We're not launching with those options in iThemes security right now, but I think passkeys have different levels of security hardness depending on your requirement. I could see why that might be necessary in a medical center.
Good. All right. So for the second time, I'm skipping through some questions that we've answered pretty much in other ways already. Let's see. Paul would like to know, on the login screen that iThemes Security takes over, the standard WordPress login, where there's the option for magic link, passkey, etc. Will login styler plugins allow you to?
So I use Login Designer, and it more or less works. We don't have specific integrations for this. If there's one that you use that you want to see us support, drop a line to our support folks via the help in your member panel. But you'll get the kind of like basic stuff. So I'll show it to you. It's not
we've actually
clean.
But, we've actually done demos on with Login Designer. That's the one we've typically used in the past year as well.
This one I like too. But yeah, it'll still work.
Good deal. All right. I believe that wraps up all the last questions here. We've answered most of these in one way or another. Timothy, any final thoughts as we're wrapping up?
I want to touch on Mark's question for just a second.
Sure.
The big thing to look at is if you go to WebAuthn/.me, and we can drop this link as well. And you go to the site, it will tell you what your browser supports. So that compatibility chart is from WebAuthn.me. But the best way to test is to go to this website and see what options are lit up for you. And what you really want is platform authenticators. And so if you're on iOS right now, on the latest iOS, you have it. The latest macOS is going to have it next week. For everyone. If you have a Mac with a Touch ID sensor, you already have it. It's a slightly different version, but the super awesome version, for lack of better words, is coming next week with macOS Ventura. For Android, it is coming to Android officially later this year for kind of passkeys. There's kind of an already existing model. It is available in Google Chrome now, as you can kind of see here, and it's available in Stable Chrome and Chrome Canary, which is what I've been testing. Is just has some little UX improvements. But it is available with regular Google Chrome now. That's the demo that we did last 2 months ago in August. On Windows, it's available with Windows Hello. And I think that covers the big three. So that's the 1,000-foot overview on device compatibility.
Very cool. And we had some questions about Chrome Canary. That's a developer version of Chrome that lets you do API things and
it's the bleeding edge.
Yeah, very good. All right, well, wrap us up, Timothy. What are a couple things that folks can take away from today?
So I think passkeys are a big new step. We've had passwords for years and years and years and years and years, and there's going to be a lot of inertia to get over. But I think passkeys truly are the future. It's not me saying this, though I say it as well, but this is what Apple and Microsoft and Google and all these tech companies are pushing for because it's so critical. And so I think it'll take a little bit of doing to, get people used to it a little bit. But I truly think that unlike the security protections that we've had before, this offers a user experience that fundamentally is better than having to type in your password. It's better than needing to use a two-factor app. And I think that's what we've needed to get broad user adoption. And so it's going to be part of what we do at iThemes, so producing user documentation, helping to do this. It's going to be coming out from Apple and Microsoft and Google pushing for this, seeing it in apps and websites, and also from us as developers and people who have clients to push them and teach them about how they can use passkeys maybe with a WordPress site, and then they can learn how to use it for all of their WordPress sites, for all of their websites that they log into, for chase.com, But it's a process, but we have 50, 60 years of history to overcome. But I think we'll be able to do it.
For sure. And Paul has just given us a great thought to end on as well in the chat. It's an important change that's coming, right? So as technical professionals, this is something we need to get familiar with and maybe start tinkering around with it with ourselves. So once we're comfortable, we can start to help our clients get comfortable with it as well. It's like any other new technology that's come down the line. Yeah. Well, thanks, Timothy, for a great presentation here, for all your work on this incredible.
I want to plug one thing.
Yes.
Is on iThemes.com. We have a really cool video. So I didn't show this, but a resources blog. Let me search for passkeys for 1 second. But we have a very cool video that kind of gives you an overview of what passkeys are and why they're important. It's 2 minutes, watch it. And that'll give you, that's something you can send to your clients and say, like, this is why passkeys are cool.
Yeah, very good. Well, okay, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Timothy, you've done great work here. Thanks for your wisdom on the webinar here, as well as your great explanations and answers to questions. Great questions from all of you folks as well. We're back tomorrow for members for office hours. That's 1 p.m. Central tomorrow here on iThemes Training, where we go further together.